So just so we know, I don't know if you saw Luigi's shirt. It says Native American on it. Welcome back, Yonata. We're glad you're here. Sure. So it's a blessing always to be here in community with you all in this spiritual school, this spiritual hospital, this spiritual community center, where we talk about a lot of elevated spiritual concepts. And this can seem very basic. This might seem very basic for most of us. Like nature, why talk about nature when we're here to learn about the soul? We're here to learn about elevating our identities and inner transformation. And so what does nature have to do with that? That seems so basic. And to a certain degree, it is. But something Luigi said a few weeks ago in our study led me to this topic. But first, let's talk about what is nature, right? What is it? Did I just turn it off? Hey, cool, I didn't know I could do that. Hey. So, what is nature? Right, there's the definitions, right, which is like the phenomena of the physical world, right? Plants, animals, the landscape, things that are a product of the earth, but not humans or, made by humans. But then the second definition of nature is the essential or innate or essential qualities or character of a person, right, or animal. So we've got nature, the external world, and then we've got what is our nature. And we're going to talk about how those two work together. But connecting with nature, why talk about this? Well, as I was preparing for this, based on what was said to me a few weeks ago, I started doing some research because, we know that it's good to be in nature. We know that there are benefits to being out in nature. And there's tons of evidence that there's been tons of studies about the benefits of being in nature. Like, what do y'all think? Why is it good to connect with nature? Just anybody.
Mental health.
Mental health, okay. What else?
Reduced electromagnetic activity.
Yes, mental health, reduced EMF. What else?
Physical health.
Physical health, okay.
Connection with yourself.
Connection with yourself.
Realize how small we are.
Realize how small we are, yes. Vic, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I worked in this law firm that had a big painting of this big mountain. And at the very bottom of the painting was maybe almost the size of these doors. And it was a big mountain, and then very, very at the bottom, really, really little, was a little person looking up at the mountain. And I was so moved by that. It just I was full of so many problems that day, and I was like, wow, my problems are very small compared to the vastness of nature. Yes, beautiful. Everything everyone has said is correct. There are no wrong answers. What else? What are the benefits? Besides mental health, physical health, connect with yourself, lowered EMF. How did you put it, Vicky?
Realize how small you are.
Realize how small we are, right. What else?
I would say realize how big we are, how divine and how powerful we are.
And they're both correct.
Yeah.
They're both correct, right? We were talking in our study tonight about how we're all like cells, individual cells in the body of God, right? So in that case, we're small, but we're part of the infinite nature of God, which is omnipresent, omnipotent, right? So there's a both and that's happening in this moment. Well, here's what the research says. Here's some excerpts from the research, right? In addition to everything you all said, right? Perseverance. They've done studies on kids and adults who have learning experiences in nature that they don't give up as quickly when they're in nature, that they could solve problems more rapidly. And weirdly, because critical thinking is an analytical process, but being in nature seemed to enhance the capacity to think critically. Also, they found people were able to have stronger levels of positive leadership when they were engaged in leadership exercise, the same as teamwork and team building when in nature. Also, when they experienced setbacks, they were able to bounce back more quickly from the setbacks, what we call resilience. And they learned and this was consistent, more than 50 studies conclusively determined that it was statistically significantly observable that people who spend time in nature have a more pro-environmental mindset, are more concerned about preserving the environment. So, and this is in addition to connecting with yourself, mental health, physical self, recognizing our vastness and our smallness, reducing EMF. So that's a lot, right? Now, how many people spent time in nature today? Raise your hand. Okay, almost half of us. Okay, who spent more than 15 minutes in nature today?
I laid in the sun for probably 30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay, more than 15 minutes. Okay, awesome. Who spent more than an hour? Okay. More than an hour? An hour? Okay. Okay. And I spent 15 minutes probably. 15 minutes. So I'm just, it's not, no judgment. This is just for awareness. If we see something has all these benefits, right? It's just something to think about. So we talked about some of the physical benefits, but we can imagine there are spiritual benefits, right? I think connecting with ourselves and maybe our vastness and our smallness, I think those are sort of spiritual ideas. What other spiritual benefits would you imagine?
Have more compassion.
More compassion. Yeah. There's no studies on this, right? It's hard to quantifiably, according to scientific procedure, to quantify spiritual benefits. So this is where
I think you just realize that we're all interconnected when you're out there.
Yeah, right? I think it helps us to begin to, hey Carla, it helps us to begin to realize how divinity is in everything, right? That there's this universal intelligence at play that's in everything. That is in everything is alive. Everything is alive. Also, if we want to connect with God, start with nature. Because, we don't really believe, I think many of us don't really believe in the inherent divinity and humanity. We look at how our brothers and sisters behave and think that could not possibly be God in them, could not possibly. And even more interesting, we have a hard time seeing it in ourselves. I'd like to think that all of us are here to figure that out, right? To really understand our true nature. We can say to the moon and back, yes, I know that I'm the divine in person. But what comes out of our mouth and what our consciousness is demonstrating are two different things. And that's why we come to places like this. There's no shame in that. I don't have any shame, and that's just why we're here, or why most of us are here. But, and this is what Yonada said, right? We can begin to understand ourselves by understanding nature. So why this topic? I've been really sick. I'm just now finally on the upswing from bronchitis. I've been fighting bronchitis for weeks now, but finally on the other side of it. So I wasn't here last week. Thank you, Roberta, for doing that lecture for me. Week before last, I was here, and Luigi was in our study was sharing about the mentors of this house, and was sharing that that many of the mentors are Native Americans. And specifically said that what makes the Native American spirits and what made the Native American people so spiritually powerful was their ability to connect with nature. And I was intrigued by that. I wrote that down. Y'all know me when I'm studying. I'm like fiercely scribbling so I can think about things later. And I thought, that seems like something I should be paying attention to, right? Let me understand that a little bit more. And so I started doing a little bit of research. I'm by no means any sort of an expert on the dozens and dozens of tribes of Native Americans that occupied this land before American settlers came. I'm not going to pretend that I did research that goes at the heart of the teachings of these dozens of tribes, most of which have major similarities. I just did what my heart called me to do, which was, why does connection with nature make you spiritually powerful? Like, that was my question. Like, it really stuck with me. Like, why does that make us spiritually powerful? I would like to understand that a little bit more. So I did a little bit of research. I'll share it with you all today. Like I said, I'm not an expert on it, but this is what I'm very, very focused on right now, because it's when we get curious about something that whole worlds can open up to us that have been sitting right in front of us. And all it takes is one spark of curiosity. So that's what I'm sharing with you, is the results of my spark of curiosity. And so I started studying, like some Native American beliefs. And one of the first things that I saw consistently with all of the reading that I was doing is, before we can talk about connecting with nature, the real question is why. It's not just all the benefits. We in the modern world, I'm only going to do something if I think I'm going to get a benefit. If I don't think I'm going to get a benefit, I'm not going to do it. That isn't even the approach that was taken by our Native American brothers and sisters. It started with a reverence for nature, seeing it as so divine, seeing the natural world as so divine and innately alive, that the benefit itself was honoring that life. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to have lower EMF and I'm going to get to understand myself. It's not, there was no list of benefits. It started from a place of deep reverence, deep reverence. And that, I think, is probably a lifetime of study in and of itself. That could never, ever be fully honored in a way that is respectful of the beliefs of these people with a couple of PowerPoint slides. I'm not even going to pretend that that's on the agenda for tonight. I think these are all questions for us. If we're curious about it, then we can go about seeking answers. But what we see in the behavior of a lot of our human brothers and sisters on this planet does not appear to have a reverence for nature. So that can't be where we go to learn, is to see what other people are doing. We have to start our own journey. And it's every single aspect. Like what I begin to study is that every single aspect of the community life starts and ends with a reverence for nature. And I'm sure you all have heard this, right? That in many, many Native American communities, the soul of the animal or the plant is thanked and honored and respected before it's consumed. So the Christian version of that is, we pray before we eat, right? That's how it's sort of, I think that's the way we see it in modern times. But it's not thanking the actual plant for its giving us its life force for our body to be strengthened. It's not thanking the animal, those of us who are meat eaters, thanking the animal for its life force, for donating its life force so that we can be strong and healthy. It's a different way to think about things. Now, Muslim, I'm not sure if it's the same in kosher, but I know in halal, the halal process of meat, of butchering, if you will, there is an element of praying for the soul of that animal and thanking it for. But it's a different way to think about things, right? We're so consumed about how much did I have to pay for the meat? How quickly can I cook it? How long after this can I go do what I need to do? We're not thinking about it. So this is just an invitation for us to start thinking about things differently. Because all of us today touched, in some way or another, into our bodies, plants, animals, and water, right? And all of those things are believed to be alive, right? And have a life force in them. There's also, in my study, and this is where it got really interesting for me, is this idea of symbolism in nature. So who spent time in nature today? A bunch of hands were raised. Who spent time in nature today? All right, where were you? You and then you.
In the backyard, I was with my garden, and I was sitting and enjoying the view, the sky, the grass, looking at my plants growing.
Mm-hmm.
That was what
Got it. So.
allowed me to be peaceful after a day of work, after being in a different vibration and going to nature.
Mm-hmm. Decompressing. Love that. And you said you were in the sun. Okay. And like at the beach or like in the backyard or
Mobile home park.
in your mobile home park. Okay, got it. But so like out like on the grass or
Nah, just in a chair.
just in a chair. Okay, got it. And the chair was like on like concrete, on cement. But you were still receiving energy from the sun.
Oh, yeah.
And how did you feel afterwards?
Well, I loved it.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Who wants to spend time? Did you say you did too?
No,
Who-
not today.
Not today? Okay. Who wants to spend time in nature today?
I kind of put a plant, flowers.
Mm-hmm.
I see that, like, little grass. Because you are part of the nature. So you live with that. You have food. You have everything. So
Yes.
that to me, it's food for you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's for everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that.
It's expanding, it's not going to a place, it's just be present with nature. That's the question, that can be present with nature as well.
Sure. Absolutely. We're going to talk about too about the different ways to connect. You don't always have to go out into
There is a
the wilderness to connect with nature. So 100%.
tree in front of my house that sometimes, I don't know why, if it is that, there is different types of birds that like to be there. And so I always connected with that, and I look at the plants and the trees.
Mm-hmm.
I connected with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I try always to pay attention what bird is here to different,
Mm.
bird is here today singing. And I love bird sings. I'm very connected with the sound of birds.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that when I'm out taking the dog, I'm always looking up at the trees or I'm trying to listen. So that's how I connected when I'm not in nature.
Mm-hmm. I would say that still is in nature.
Yeah.
Because we think nature is like we have to go to a park or,
Yeah.
right, go to the
Well,
beach.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I sit down on my window when the sun's down because I'm on the west side of Boca. So whoever is on the west, you can see more the sun,
Mhm.
the sun down. So I always sit down and I pay attention to the sky
Mm-hmm.
because I love the colors.
Mm-hmm. So, when you were in your garden after work, or when you were in the sun, or when you were with the birds, do you ever think about like what those elements of nature represent for you? Like, do you like birds for a certain reason?
I think then, I don't know, today I looked at the skies and I saw that it was very dark and I think it was raining in the morning.
Mhm.
It was very dark clouds. So a lot of ducks coming from south going north. And that's how I saw the rain coming.
Mm-hmm.
The west, northwest was sunny.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, been going that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it gives me a feeling of the light,
Mm.
the direction,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything for you, like what the garden represents for you? Like, is there like any symbolism in the garden for you?
Surrounding myself and being overwhelmed, just changing the energy of the day and just admiring the beauty of nature. And just being in that presence helps me to just change whatever's going on. I go in nature, I know, okay, now's the time to let go of the day,
Mm.
give the energy to absorb the energy and the beauty of just the world,
Mm-hmm.
nature growing and just appreciating those beautiful things in life.
Mm-hmm.
Things in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Overcomplicate things.
Mm. We're good at that, aren't we? Guilty. Yeah. And then was there any symbolism for the sun for you?
Not for me, but there is definitely.
Sure. But when you were in the sun, you weren't connecting that with it. That's fine. Whether we're connecting it or not, we're just talking about how what my study has shown that they, many Native American tribes have identified symbols in nature with profound meanings. And in fact, there's animals represent certain things. Represent certain things. even birds. If you think about it, if we or you or I felt stuck and we decided to go watching birds, and imagine if there's an interconnectedness that I heard someone say, watching birds fly is really powerful.
Singing one to the other and talk to each other and communicate. And when you start, the funny part is when you start realizing birds, then you see how many different birds are. Because you never imagine how many colors they have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of, oh my God, I never saw this one. And, you know, and I try to figure out which one is.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yes. Before I talk about this last point, what was really, I talked about that mountain and feeling so small, and like it kind of gave me perspective. Nature is really good at offering perspective. When, Yonata talked about this a couple of months back about the physiology of looking down and like what that does to us and then changing. Like that's also NLP talks a lot about, your linguistic program about changing your physical position will also change your biophysiology. It will change your internal state. So imagine you're not going to watch birds fly on the ground, right? You got to look up to watch birds fly, right? There's a lot of wisdom in what nature can represent for us to help us get out of the stories we tell ourselves about why we're not happy, or the stories that we tell ourselves about why we're not well, or the stories we tell ourselves about why we're not at peace, or the stories we tell about ourselves about why things are going badly for us. There's a lot that nature can bring to us, should we ask those questions. But the interconnectedness is really, I think, oh, wow, look at that. I'm interconnected with the microphone. The interconnectedness of things. Thich Nhat Hanh. Everyone familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh? Anyone not? So he's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk he has passed away a few years ago. But he had in France a sangha called the Order of Interbeing. And all of the teachings of this mindfulness community was about interbeing, that we all are, that we only exist because of each other. And I loved, again, how the visual from earlier today, that if there's this one massive divine body, we're all cells of the same body. There's many different ways to think about the interconnectedness of things. But, this is, the Cherokee people believe this, that we're all connected. Many of the other tribes also have various themes of interconnectedness. But when we look at nature, it becomes very clear because it all works together. If you think just about the elements, water, air, fire, earth, right? The four basic elements. All four need each other, right? The plants need water in order to grow, right? The sun can also represent fire. We need that for the light. Every single element needs every other element. One of my favorite stories from back to Thich Nhat Hanh and the Order of Interbeing. I think I've told this here before, but I'll say it again. And that is that when you drink tea, you're drinking clouds. Every time you drink a cup of tea, you're drinking clouds. How is that? Because tea is dried leaves. And before the leaves were dried, they were leaves. And those leaves were on a plant. And the plant was in the ground. And in order for that plant to grow, it was rained on. And those rain came from the clouds. So when you drink the tea, you're also drinking earth. You're drinking the sun. You're drinking the clouds. You're drinking the rain. But what do? We're like, it's too hot. Let me hurry up and drink it so I can get to work. We're not even slowing down enough to notice that we're drinking clouds in our tea. Like these are just the part of the connecting and becoming aware is to slow ourselves down. That's how we can see how this connections takes place. And I love this Lakota proverb, Mitakuye Oyasin. It means we're all related. They literally have phrases and proverbs that explain this, not just to each other, but to divinity. Another belief is the protecting of the earth. Remember, back now to the evidence-based benefits of what the scientists have said of connecting to nature, that you become more environmentally conscious. Well, we didn't really need the scientists to tell that, because the first inhabitants of this country already knew that. And I love this message. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. If we really treated this planet like it was for our descendants, what would we do differently? There's a lot we can learn from the wisdom of these beautiful people. In fact, I heard it said that when Luigi was talking about the mentors of the center, that the Native American mentors, that it is actually the Native American spiritual community that takes care of the spiritual health of this country. That's how elevated they are spiritually. There's a lot for us to learn from them. There's no way to, a quote on a PowerPoint slide will ever do it for us. We have to do our own, we have to become curious. If we're interested, we start with curiosity and then begin our own course of study. And what you find will be different from what I found. And if you do study and you do find it, bring it back for us, right? If we need each other as a community, we'll all get a little piece of it, and together we can learn more. Now, in this course of study, you know, when you're doing research, it can become a rabbit hole. So I found myself just going down or going up or going around. I was just having such a good time with doing this research. And I started, when I set the intention to do this talk, it was literally in the same study. I said, next time I do a talk, I'm going to do a talk on, I want to study this more. So I've been paying attention. Once you kind of open your awareness, you set an intention, all these great things I started noticing. And so, and then even in my email, I get like this newsletter called the Good Newsletter. So, and one of the things I read in the morning is the good news, and it's full of like positive stories of what's happening around the planet, because I like to start my day with like a good vibration, right? So I started noticing in my rings that worldwide in the present day, that there have been many official acts of recognition, like legislative acts of recognition of nature. For example, in my newsletter, my nice newsletter from 2 weeks ago, they gave email addresses for 70,000 trees in Melbourne, Australia. Why did they do that? Because the trees were, they were having a problem with some sort of a fungus that was on the trees, and they were wanting to monitor it. So they asked the citizens of Melbourne to, there's a little plaque with the email on each tree that if you saw this, to send an email to, they gave the tree the email and say, I saw you're laughing, saw the fungus on this tree. But an unintended consequence was that people began actually writing to the trees. And so all the emails are going to like the city workers, like the city of Melbourne, right? But people were writing like, oh, tree, I have to take a test today. I know you don't take tests because you're a tree, but I just wanted you to know I'm glad you're here giving me some shade while I sit on this bench and I'm studying for my test. Well, the city workers write back. They answer all the emails. So the city worker writes back and says, well, I hope you did well in your test. Studies show that when you're learning in nature, right? And so now they're getting tons of emails to these trees because there's this small act of recognition is raising awareness of the interconnectedness, right? This is recent. This was just a few weeks ago in Bolivia. So a little more than 10 years ago, they actually passed the law of the rights of Mother Earth based on the belief that nature has legal rights. So in Bolivia, there are laws protecting the natural world because the natural world in Bolivia, they've decided, have legal rights. Now just think about that for a minute. How about in Ecuador? In their constitution was amended in 2008, recognized nature or Pachamama and respect for its existence, and especially in water, that there are legal rights, and there can be lawsuits brought on behalf of nature. Here in the States, not so much, right? We have like the Environmental Protection Commission that is not in any way recognizing nature of what it is. It's more of how badly you can destroy nature for money-making activities before they'll stop you. It has nothing to do with this level. New Zealand, they actually passed what they call the Te Awa Tupua for the Wanganui River, which actually created personhood for this river. It's one of the largest rivers. And the Maori people had always said that the river was alive, and they didn't want to have any development near the river. But once it gave them the rights, powers, duties, and liabilities of a legal person, now lawsuits can be brought by the river as a legal entity. Just so notice that where these acts are taking place, they're not here, but it's for us to raise awareness, right? This isn't for us to do anything but become aware and become more curious if you want to, right? This is a picture of the Wanganui River in New Zealand. Beautiful, right? So, we wouldn't think twice about showing love to a human being. We wouldn't think twice. Like, oh, give them a hug or not give a hug, right? We wouldn't think twice. But we seem to think twice about whether or not we're going to love up on nature. It's a question for us. I don't have the answer, right? I think a good course of study generates great questions more than great answers. So, what are some of the ways that we can connect with nature, right? I'm going to tell you, you know where I got this list? I sat my child down. I said, how do you connect with nature? This is her list. It says, I pay attention when I'm in nature to all of my senses. What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I smelling? I stop. She says, I love to lie down in the grass. I like to swim and float in the water. Because when I swim in the water versus floating in the water, one makes me feel like I'm being supported, and the other one makes me feel free. Like, young people will tell you everything you want to know if you will sit down and listen to them. He says, Mom, I know you hate it, but I like to walk barefoot. And I know you say my feet are dirty, but it feels good to me. It feels good. And y'all remember the talk I gave on grounding, right? So that if you were here, you remember. There's an actual energetic, an electronic pulse that comes through your feet when you do that. And she was like halfway apologetic when we're talking. She's like, I like to sit in the rain. I know you don't like it when I do that, Mom, because you're like, oh, yeah. But I like to sit in the rain because it clears my mind. You know what? We have towels, Mom, we do. They work. Like, they dry off the rain. And also loves to build sandcastles, which I hate because I don't like sitting in the sand. But she's like, well, when you sit in the sand and you realize how quickly your hands can create something out of nothing. I'm getting a whole lesson from this girl. Climbing trees, which also makes me a little bit nervous, right? But it's, for her, it's being able to get off the ground, and to be able to see things from a different perspective. From the tree, it looks different from on the ground. Young people, I tell you, gazing at the stars, gazing at the clouds. The only one on this list that was from me is the last three. So one of my favorite things to do is one of my absolute favorite types of meditation is an eyes open meditation, simply looking into a candle flame or looking at the fire. And what I notice when I do that is that how quickly things change. The flame is never the same from moment to moment. In the fire, it's never the same. It's always moving. It's always changing. Because if you have ever felt stuck, like you're in a situation that will not change, it's a lie. The nature of the universe changes all the time. And the last thing, which is the journey I'm on now, is keeping a nature journal, right? Is how do I feel before, right? What our friend said, you came home from work, you felt stressed out, you went and you sat in your garden and you felt different, right? Is paying attention to that. It's expanding our awareness because, what we notice when we're out in nature, it's a matter of perspective. I mean, a ladybug that's on a leaf, it doesn't see the tree, right? It may not even see the person that's sitting below the tree. It just sees the leaf. And the person beneath the tree may not see the ladybug, but they're both there. So part of this for us is to expand our awareness. Like Carla said, whenever you're outside, you take time to, how many different birds are there? How many different songs can I hear? Get curious, how do the plants and animals communicate? Like, I don't have the answers for these, but these are the kinds of questions I think that can help us get out of our heads and the stories we have about why things aren't going well for us or why we want things to be different. But my ask of you all is, what stops us? Why don't we spend time in nature? Because more than half the room did not raise their hand today. Why don't we do it? Have to make time, okay? What else? Time?
So when I'm driving, I like to look at the sky.
Mm-hmm, that is. Mm-hmm.
They have nature video games now.
Mm.
So when
They
you
really
get up,
do.
That they do.
when you get up on your job, and this is stressful with a lot of people, blah blah blah. It's only you can take it out from the store or wherever you work and look in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
and the trees, and the very
So these are all the ways we can do it,
Yes,
right?
I
Yes,
agree.
we know that we can, but let's get real for a minute. Why don't we do that?
Because we don't want to pay attention. We like stop.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
Maybe.
Is that true for everyone, or the other people who did not raise your hand when I said who spent time in nature? Half the room didn't. Was it time? Was it, what did you say? Is like we don't want to.
I think we don't want to be connected. Human beings just, it's so worrying about the surroundings, material surroundings, money, and they don't take time to take care of themselves. I think once you start connecting, you need to start to take care of yourself, your mind, your spirit. It's important. We don't need to do because people tell us. You feel differently.
That's right.
So when you choose talk in that mode, I think in your surroundings, in the material surroundings, you're not aware of yourself yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's now I'm open, but it's practice.
Yeah, practice.
And I'm practicing. It's not that everything's beautiful, but I force myself to look at,
Yeah.
to listen.
Yeah. Thank
and
you.
It's making me feel more free within myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Yonata, you want to say something?
I was going to say that we don't do anything that is not priority in our life.
Mm-hmm.
We usually only do things that we classify as priority.
Mm-hmm. Don't make it a priority, period.
That is priority.
We got to change that to change your priorities in life. If you're going to be honest with each other, most of our priorities is surviving, is working, and
Yeah.
do the things that we do it every day, sleep, eat, work, and if I have time, I come to the center. If I have the time, I connect with nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to happen. But the Native of Americans were the number one priority.
Yes. Period. Yeah. Were you going to say something else?
Yeah, our priority is to breathe. But you can see the
Well, yes.
sky, and then you have always time. 1 minute, 2
Mm-hmm.
minutes. You
That's
can go
right.
to the night to see the stars, or in the morning to see the sun. or whatever, always sit out 5 minutes, 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we can practice in the present moment, even though in this room, the only real elements of nature we have besides ourselves are 2 living plants.
And ourselves.
I said besides ourselves.
Oh.
I said besides ourselves are 2 living plants, right? So even if there were no plants, even if you were in a windowless office, you can still practice connecting with nature. So let's do it together for just a couple minutes. You can literally look at a picture.
Yeah.
You can just imagine the picture in your mind. So take a look at the picture. See if you can get it in your memory. And now close your eyes. And imagine that you are sitting on the ground at the edge of this river. And these large mountains of New Zealand are on either side of you. And you're at the foot of this river that flows between these 2 mountains. And as you begin to pay attention to your breath, allowing our thoughts to slow down, we open our sensory awareness, starting first with what we can hear. Imagine that as you're sitting there, you can hear birds singing. You may hear the wind blowing through the trees. You may hear the sounds of the river flowing over rocks. You may hear fish jumping out of the water and splashing. You might even hear your own heartbeat that is also pulsing in unity with all of the sounds around you. You may notice what you feel. You can feel the wind very gently moving over your skin. You might feel the warmth of the sun overhead. You might feel the coolness of the water lapping at your feet. And just for a moment, notice how you feel, just with this imagery in your mind, these sounds, these feelings, just 3 senses, the effect that it has on your well-being. And when you're all ready, you can open your eyes. That was about 1 minute. Who feels differently now than you did 1 minute ago? Anyone? A couple of people. Okay, only a couple of people, all right? What feels different? Ejamara, what feels different? Well, we are just about at time. So we see how quickly we can. And nobody has to answer this question out loud. But if you wanted to, you could commit to doing something tomorrow. We just learned in 1 minute what you can do in 1 minute. And you didn't have to get in your car and drive anywhere. You didn't have to go into the garden or into the chair or over to the tree, right? It's good to do those things. I just hope that we saw in this 1 minute, we've removed all the stories we have about why we don't connect with nature, right? And that our own heartbeat is beating in tune with everything around us. We can go right inside of ourselves to connect. So I'm going to close with this poem from Thich Nhat Hanh, which is actually a letter, and I'll read it since the text is really small. I don't know how many of you can see it. But he says, I bow my head, dear Mother Earth, I bow my head before you as I look deeply and recognize that you are present in me and that I am a part of you. I was born from you, and you are always present, offering me everything I need for my nourishment and growth. My mother, my father, and all my ancestors are also your children. We breathe your fresh air. We drink your clear water. We eat your nourishing food. Your herbs heal us when we're sick. You are the mother of all beings. I call you by the human name, Mother, and yet I know your mothering nature is more vast and ancient than humankind. We are just one young species of your many children. All the millions of other species who live or have lived on Earth are also your children. You aren't a person, but I know you are not less than a person either. You are a living, breathing being in the form of a planet. Each species has its own language, yet as our mother, you can understand us all. That is why you can hear me today as I open my heart to you and offer you my prayer. Dear Mother, wherever there is soil, water, rock, or air, you are there, nourishing me and giving me life. You are present in every cell of my body. My physical body is your physical body. And just as the sun and stars are present in you, they are also present in me. You are not outside of me, and I am not outside of you. You are more than just my environment. You are nothing less than myself. I promise to keep the awareness alive that you are always in me, and I am always in you. I promise to be aware that your health and well-being is my own health and well-being. I know I need to keep this awareness alive in me for both of us to be peaceful, happy, and strong. And so that is what I want to leave you with today. I hope if you learned something, please put it into practice and share it with someone you love. And that is all I had time for today, so thank you very much.
March magnetism course, March 1 to 2, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So 2 days, right? Okay. That's awesome. Okay. Spiritual talks, public meetings in English, Wednesdays at 8:15 p.m. Volunteers needed in the kitchen. If anybody would like to help, please, we need volunteers. Channeled messages here on Wednesdays. If you arrive by 8:10, you can put your name in the front over there on the entrance. Fluidotherapy, magnetized water, Wednesdays at 8:15. Fraternal welcome and treatment at distance on Thursdays at 7 p.m., Portuguese and English. We have the wellness programs on Tuesdays, meditations here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Spiritual surgery, free of charge. You can book an appointment on the any public meeting day at the bookshop. Volunteers needed at yard sale. When do they happen? I don't know. March 8? Okay. Every second week of the month. Yeah. On Saturdays, right? Yeah. Oh, they need help Fridays and at night. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's do our final prayer. We've already did a little meditation here, and that was beautiful. And continuing the spirit of light, connectiveness, and love, self-love, self-awareness. We've learned so much, and we continue to, as we go inside, as we come here, as we share, as we talk, as we listen, and as we feel. And we do feel a beautiful presence in this place of connection, in this place where we come to heal and connect with our inner selves, with the nature that exists all around us, with every world that connects us together, with each one of us bringing the beauty of their own world and their own nature. In this place, we are grateful and thankful